You know, I like to think I'm not the sort of person who becomes bitter at the success of my friends. But when I've suffered an injustice, I feel compelled to speak out. The other day, my Daily Wire colleagues, Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles, were both called hateful by the Southern Poverty Law Center. For some reason, I was overlooked. Now, again, it's not jealousy that motivates me here. It's a simple sense of fair play. I think anyone who has listened to this podcast without prejudice will agree that I am every bit as hateful to the Southern Poverty Law Center as Shapiro or Knowles. After all, I support freedom in the Constitution as much as they do. I reject intersectionality and racial victim mongering as much as they do. And I believe in God and country every bit as much as they do. I am hateful, damn it. And I deserve to be recognized for my hatefulness by the Southern Poverty Law Center just as much as any other God-loving, freedom-loving patriot. I'm not trying to take anything away from Ben and Michael, but I'm asking you today to contact the Southern Poverty Law Center through their hate report hotline at splcenter.org/report-hate and demand that I be given my fair due. As a non-racist, freedom-loving, God-fearing American, I am as hateful to the Southern Poverty Law Center as anyone alive, and I deserve that recognition. Again, that's splcenter.org/report-hate. Right today. #Call Klavan hateful. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
All right, we've got to get back into this. So, I said we're talking about a lot of smoke and mirrors here, all of the emotivism, all of the innuendo, not so much of the facts. Listen to this from the Southern Poverty Law Center. You know, because we could just call all the news today frivolous nonsense. So, we're focusing on the Southern Poverty Law Center because they've named my PragerU video the most egregious Prager video of all time. And it's the video in which I attack the racists of the alternative right. But they're really upset. So what is the Southern Poverty Law Center? It's this massively funded propaganda machine. It's just this leftist propaganda machine. That's all it is. They have this patina of credibility because they have an interesting sounding name. They are nothing. They spent $10 million on fundraising in 2015, way more than they did on legal services. They transferred millions to offshore tax havens. They smeared the Family Research Council, which is a pro-traditional family group. A gunman who shot up that council cited the influence of the Southern Poverty Law Center in his shooting. There was mob violence at Charles Murray's speech at Middlebury. A faculty member who was there cited Southern Poverty Law Center again as justification. 2 years ago, the FBI totally stopped citing SPLC as a source because it's so frivolous. Probably shouldn't have nonprofit status. Its founder is just a direct marketing guru, Morris Dees. He was actually inducted into the Direct Marketing Hall of Fame. Real civil rights activists call him a con man. But he's so effective because all he does is rely on innuendo, just like we were talking about with Tom. It's that exact same. It's all, well, what do you don't think this exists? What, come on, don't you really think? It's all just innuendo. And so, ironically, the Southern Poverty Law Center has become a hate group. They're like against hate groups, and they've become a hate group. This is what they wrote about my video from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Quote, "The most egregious of PragerU's videos, in Tripodi's opinion, is What is the Alt-Right?, hosted by conservative internet talk show host Michael Knowles. The video posits that as an alternative to conservatism, the alt-right is most accurately compared with the left for 3 reasons. The left and the alt-right are obsessed with identity politics, both focus on group identity rather than the individual, and both the left and the alt-right ultimately reject God. The video ends with Knowles declaring, in other words, the alt-right has nothing in common with conservatism and is in fact much closer to leftism, except of course that the left is much, much larger." That's all they wrote. They said it's the most egregious video, and then they just quote my video. But they don't give any evidence for why it's egregious. They don't give any argument for why it's egregious. They make a blanket statement, and then they just fill it in with words. They just try to distract with frivolous nonsense, right? It's just these distractions. Don't you think the economy is doing well? Don't talk about the economy. Talk about this imaginary video that everyone's been talking about. Well, don't you think the foreign affairs? No, don't talk about that. Don't talk about, right? It's all just distraction. And by the way, this is how Donald Trump won. I know it's become cliche to say this is how Donald Trump won or this is how Donald Trump won. This is actually how he won. Have you heard about the ongoing saga of Chick-fil-A? So there was an article in the Huffington Post. It said, if you really love LGBTQ people, you just can't keep eating Chick-fil-A. You can't. So if you really like gay people, you can't eat chicken sandwiches. And this is what the article said. It said, quote, if you care about queer people or you yourself are queer, you have absolutely no business eating at Chick-fil-A ever. It's really that straightforward. And they dinged them because Chick-fil-A donates to the Salvation Army, which is Christian. And if it's Christian, then it's bad because it's not part of the Pride movement or something. The politicization of everything is so tedious. This base innuendo that everybody who doesn't agree with you is a bigot or a racist or a this or a that. It's so tedious and it's so divisive. I mean, even the acronym LGBT is by definition divisive, right? Because it keeps dividing itself. It's LGBTQP, LMNOP, or so, what? It just keeps going on and on and on to divide into smaller and smaller interest groups. There isn't much of a common culture anymore. There isn't. You don't see a lot of common culture. We don't watch the same TV shows. I'm going to watch Tom Arnold's show because we had him on. But I suspect a lot of our audience probably isn't going to watch his show. And it's not that we all watch different things, different movies, different news, different. We read different books if we read it all. We don't have a common religion. We don't even have a common traditional love of country. And this is what makes Donald Trump appealing, because Donald Trump appeals to like the last remaining things that unite us. And I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. I wish there was more that united us. But he appeals to winning. At least everybody should want winning, right? He appeals to good deals. We're going to get good deals, right? Okay, that appeals to all of us. Strength, peace, even football, right? When football, at least you think that could unite all of us. And then that guy, Colin Kaepernick, tried to make that divisive as well and tried to protest against the symbol of America itself. And he called them out on it. People don't want that. This presidency, ironically, of Donald Trump is essentially a call for unity, again, in its own very brash Trumpian way. He says things like, we all have the same blood of patriots. We all bleed the same blood of patriots. What made Barack Obama so tedious, it was all just about poking his opponents, all just about dividing and dividing, talking about why men should use the little girl's bathroom and painting the White House in rainbow colors of light, right? It's so just divisive. Writing off his countrymen as bitter clingers. I mean, listen to that. I asked Tom, I said, are you calling half the country racist? And he said no, and then he called half the country racist. That, when you write off your countrymen as bitter clingers like Barack Obama did, or Hillary Clinton writes them off as deplorable and irredeemable, that people don't like that. People don't, that's not aspirational, that's not inspired, that's just ugly and crass and base and divisive. And the good news for us is as long as our political opponents on the left keep that up, I think things are going to look up for us. I mean, there's a real aspirational quality to this presidency, to this political moment. Bill Kristol, the erstwhile Republican commentator and conservative commentator, he said the Reagan years were aspirational and Trump isn't. He's missing it. People are missing this. This is an aspirational moment of coming together, of succeeding, of trying to bring North Korea to the table, and we had a good first inning. Hopefully it goes all the way to the end. This is a good moment, and the left is relying strictly on smoke and mirrors. It is all illusion and innuendo and smoke and mirrors, and it's best just to smack it down and to ignore it.